These vlogs are getting out of hand. Right now, I'm in Germany and I've spent 2 days here with Adidas and Tennis Point. Yesterday, we visited the incredible Adidas headquarters, and today we're on court at TennisBase testing out their products. So as always, let's rewind 48 hours so you can come along with me. Let's go. So after 2 taxi journeys, as I went to the wrong hotel, I'm finally here in Nuremberg, Germany. I won't go through the entire itinerary as that will spoil the video, but what I will say is tomorrow morning, nice and early, we're gonna head over to the Adidas campus where we've got a full day of workshops, history sessions, as well as a tour of the campus. And in the evening after that, we're heading to TennisBase, which is near to Munich, where the next day we're gonna be testing out Adidas's new clay court shoes and their new French Open range of clothing. Right now I'm gonna head to dinner and meet the Tennis Point team and some of the other content creators that are here on the trip with us, and I'll see you in the morning. So just got back to the hotel room to a bunch of goodies on the bed. We've got the clay court Cybersonics, some Adidas clothes, and also the classic Tennis Point team yellow garments. As you guys know me by now, I pretty much only wear black and white and maybe a little bit of gray, so these funky colors are going to be a little bit different. Let's see how they look. So in the morning, we jumped into the Tennis Point van and headed over to the Adidas campus. It was only a couple of minutes away, but as we were driving to the campus, you could see the scale of it. It was around 54 acres in size and had recently had a couple of new buildings built. Now, these buildings were striking. Architecturally, they were super modern and had specific reasons for their style, which I'll talk about in a second. But as we entered the main building, which was called the Arena building, we were welcomed with a personal message on the big digital screen behind the reception desk. This was a really cool personal touch. We'd already met a couple of the Adidas team in the previous evening, Jan and Johannes, who were looking after us for the 2 days. They gave us a few ground rules as there were a few areas that were unable to be filmed. I'll talk about those in a minute, but shortly after that, they introduced us to our tour guide, Felix. Felix started to show us around the campus, explaining that the Arena building is kind of the hub of the campus. This is where lots of the staff hang out. As you can see walking into this Arena building, it's huge and feels like you're walking into a stadium. All the way around the building is this blue track for staff to keep active during their lunch breaks, but also some really cool chill areas where you can hang out and look over the beautiful scenes of the campus. As well as this track running around the arena, there is a space for every single sport that you can imagine. Football pitches, athletics areas, a tennis court of course, paddle courts, a swimming pool amongst plenty other things. And what I loved is outside each building were a set of Adidas bikes, which staff could just pick up and ride around campus from building to building. Felix explained a little bit about how this campus was built. It was actually built on a German military area. The newest of the buildings was the one that we'd just been in, the Arena building. And what was really interesting about this one was the first and second floors were actually built at ground level and then pumped up using these pump-like stilts. As well as the Adidas staff, this ground is used a lot by professional athletes, some of the best athletes in the world. Whether it be Olympic runners, professional footballers like Lionel Messi, of course professional tennis players, but also the German national football team actually base themselves from the Adidas headquarters now and again. In fact, they stay in this place called Home Ground, which is specifically built for sports teams to come and enjoy the opportunity to team build without all the paparazzi. The German national football team love it here so much they actually paid for a couple of paddle courts to be built, as in between training and during their lunch breaks, they love to play. After this, we headed over to the halftime building, which is where lots of conferences are held, but also a museum-like area where you could see some of the most historic shoes. Felix gave us a short history lesson, showing us through some of the most famous Adidas shoes made. There were shoes from Olympic gold medalists, World Cup champions, and of course the famous Stan Smith, possibly the most iconic Adidas shoe of all time. He showed us the bicycle that Adi Dassler had repurposed to cut the leather for the shoes. Back then, Adi wasn't receiving quite so many orders, so he could do them all himself. Nowadays, unfortunately, that's not the case.
In 1948, the two brothers had a big discussion, and it's not clear why they had this big discussion. It's just said that after this discussion, they didn't talk to each other till the end. They said, okay, we have to split our company. As some of you might know or don't know, Rudolf founded in the same year Puma. So the brother of Adi founded Puma. Adi said, okay, now I have to found my own as well. I found Adidas.
Oh my god.
In the same building, we had the privilege of meeting Daniel, Axel and Alex. These three headed up the Cybersonic project. Between them, they've been at Adidas for over 55 years, which demonstrates their experience and their overall passion for creating products at Adidas. Between them, they've worked on pretty much every Adidas shoe that you have ever worn on the tennis court. So it was really cool to hear from the experts. They talked through the design process, how the shoes are tested, how the athletes get involved to give their feedback, and Daniel explained specifically how the Cybersonic was built, including the innovation of the new energy rod that runs through the shoe. I thought you might find this bit interesting.
And this is really different to a lot of shoes that are out there, and I'd like to land this because sometimes you don't see that in a store when you just look at the shoe. In most of the shoes, TPU pieces are used as stability elements, stopping a movement, blocking a movement, holding you back. We need to take into consideration, or what we want to take into consideration, is that elements should not stop your movement, it should actually allow you to move better. And the beauty about this one is the shoe allows propulsion in the forefoot, it allows torsionability in the midfoot, and it allows us to have stability in the heel. So basically the three things that you want to do in one piece.
This slide gives a good visual of the Adidas shoe range, the Cybersonic leading the way with speed and the Barricade leading the way with control. And right in the center is the women's Ava Court shoe, which was designed specifically for the women's game and the women's anatomy. As you can see below those top three shoes, there are more budget-friendly versions underneath. Although these shoes don't feature as much speed as the Cybersonic and as much control as the Barricade, some of them give you a happy medium of the two. Next up, we had lunch. I had a burger, which was incredible, as you can see, before heading to the next building, which was called Laces. This building is where most of the magic happens, and in some areas of this building, cameras were prohibited. But I filmed everything that I could for you. This is where all of the concepts are born and developed. We were shown some of the labs that the professional athletes would go into to have their bodies scanned and tested. These superstars were made to feel like superstars at Adidas HQ, and the service that they get is second to none. There's actually a small factory on site which can turn around a pair of shoes within a day. For example, Lionel Messi would come down in the morning, have his body and his feet tested, give his feedback about how his current shoes are playing, and the team will be able to build a brand new shoe around his exact requirements so that he can fly out that evening. Now, of course, Adidas can't do this for all of their athletes, but they have a very select few that have this service. All of the departments within this Laces building are connected via this bridge system, and as you can see, there are so many of them running to and from the left and the right that it looks like laces. Our final stop in this building was possibly the most exciting of the day. We went into the Maker Lab. Now, this was a creative area where designers would put their ideas together. This was also open to any Adidas member of staff to go in and use their creativity during their breaks. They could adapt shoes and clothing, cut fabrics, use different labels, zippers. The opportunities were endless, and it was so cool to see this space. The reason we were in there was we were lucky enough to be shown some of the most historic shoes ever. Not only were we talked through their history, but we were actually able to hold them. I held the first ever Adidas tennis shoe. And as you can see here, this was before the three-stripe design. Could you imagine playing tennis in these? I also held the predecessor to the Stan Smith, as well as legend Stefan Edberg shoes. We were brought up through the 80s and 90s where we saw the equipment shoe and the feather shoe. We got to look at Marat Safin and Justin Henning-Harden's Barricades, as well as Angie Kerber and Sasha Zverev's Ubersonics. This was a real privilege to be able to see and hold these iconic shoes. So just finished an incredible day at the Adidas HQ. Now we are off for a quick 1.5 hour journey to TennisBase for tomorrow's shoot. See you there. After a 2-hour journey turned into a 3-hour journey, we finally arrived at TennisBase, which is about 30 minutes from Munich. When we got here, we checked into our hotel, had a nice barbecue before chilling out in the pub. Anyway, this morning we've got between 3 and 4 hours to play on these beautiful clay courts and test out the Adidas range. But yeah, just to make me look a little bit more pro, I'm going to be putting on this bandana. And also rocking a sweatband. I've got two, but to be honest, I normally just wear the one. Let's do it.
So it's pretty sunny, changed into my cap.
So you may know that I already wear the Cybersonics. I wear the all-court version, and I actually made a review of my first impressions of the shoe a few months ago. Now I've had a few months to try the shoes, I thought I'd give you a little bit of an update. I mentioned before that my feet are pretty wide, and sometimes shoes are uncomfortable if they're a little bit narrow in the toe box. Now, although these are a speed shoe, which generally tend to be more narrow than control shoes, I had no problems with the toe box being too narrow. When you put your foot in the shoe, they feel solid. Sometimes speed-oriented shoes are much softer and lighter materials, so don't give you that support that a control shoe does. For me, the Cybersonics, although they fit at the speed end of the spectrum, they do give me a lot of stability. The energy rods at the back that you heard Daniel talking about earlier definitely does give you that extra propulsion. And when it comes to the clay court version that you can see me wearing here, it gave me a real good grip on the clay. As you can see, I'm not a massive slider on this surface as the clay was pretty wet, but some of the other players were really going for their slides, and you can see the amount of control that that outsole gives. I think it's probably safe to say that lots of people watching this video will be a little bit more like me and won't be doing these really super aggressive slides. So if that is you, these clay court shoes are still great. As you can see, they really gave me the grip and the ability to push off laterally. These are definitely a great performance shoe, and I would opt for them to play matches in. What was really cool about this hitting session was we had a couple more Adidas experts visit, and they were answering any questions that we had and really watching the shoes in action. They were asking if there were any parts of the shoe that were uncomfortable, and even taking photos of the shoes after action to see which parts of the shoe had clay on. This is for future developments to make sure that they're putting the hard wearing materials in the right areas.
This is what the Adidas staff do in their lunch break.
Now I'll give a final mention to the clothing. You've seen me wearing it already. The top that I'm wearing is size medium, and in the collar it says slim fit. Now I normally wear size medium, I'm 5'10", and this is a slightly more snug fit than I normally would wear, but it definitely makes me look more athletic. The shorts were really comfortable and really breathable and with a perfect length. We also got to see the women's range, which looked pretty cool as well. The only thing that I would change about all of my Adidas kit that I was wearing would be the colour. Unfortunately, you can get the top in black and the Cybersonics in black too, so I think that's going to be my next purchase.
As you saw, I had the most incredible 2 days, so a massive thank you to Tennis Point and Adidas for making this trip happen. I hope you guys enjoyed coming along on the trip with me. Let me know in the comments below if you've got any questions about the trip or about the clothing or the shoes, and I'll be sure to get back to you. Thanks as always for watching. I look forward to seeing you next time. Take care.